Hello Aquarius and welcome to your reading. This is Bright Soul Collective Tarot. My name is Laura and these will be your intuitive insights and advice for the month of June 2022. So this reading will be for Aquarius Sun, Moon, and Rising. And if you do know your Sun, Moon, and Rising sign, you can feel free to check out any of the other videos that apply for you. And just a reminder, these readings are general in nature. They're meant to apply to kind of a broad collective of people. So not all of the messages that come through will make sense for you. I highly encourage you take anything and everything that does resonate for you, however it makes sense to your specific situation. Keep an open mind to anything that might be helpful, and you can simply leave the rest. So Aquarius, I hope you're doing well. I can't believe it's already June. That means I've been reading for you guys for 6 months already. So whether this is your first time here or whether you're returning, thank you for sharing this time and space with me. I appreciate it. And I have so much fun preparing these readings for you guys. So super excited to take a look at the month of June and to see what kind of energy you might be contending with, and hopefully we'll get you some empowering messages that'll have you feeling prepared to make the absolute very most of the month ahead. So I've got your oracle cards here. We'll pull some cards and take a look at the tarot, but I'm going to start off as always with your channeled messages. So I took time to sit down and connect with your energy before getting any cards out for you. So I'll share what kind of impressions I got and what messages came through, and then we'll get into your cards. So in Aquarius, it was really interesting. I'm actually very excited to get into this reading because there's like a lot of opposing energy that I was picking up on. And so I got like the sense of like being a little bit hyper or impatient, like a little bit scattered, jittery. And so it's like the impression that I got is like you might be in a space where you're constantly trying to like stay on the move and take action, because when you're in that space you feel more focused. And even when I say focus, it's like focused but also scattered at the same time. So it was kind of like you might be trying to focus on what you're doing, but then you have ideas about what you're doing that are kind of interfering with the process. So it's like kind of getting too much in your head when you're taking action. So it's like, that's the sense that I got, is like, if I'm doing something, I'm really focused, but I'm also like impatient about making things happen and getting things done, right? So it's like, I'm caught up in my thoughts about it. And then it's like when I slow down, and I'm not taking action, and I might be trying to like reflect or work through things, I felt avoidance in terms of that, but also a sense of like brain fog, like a congestion in my head. Like it's the sense that it's like, I know there's something there. I know there's something to be figured out, and I'm just not quite getting it. And it's like almost like that feeling of when you're searching for the right word and you know what the word is and it's just not coming to mind. So it's like, that's what I mean when I say brain fog. And so I'm not sure if that makes any sense to you, but I definitely got the sense that you might be just trying to keep yourself busy. And it doesn't even have to be like a super productive kind of busy, but it's like maybe you feel as though you have more focus when you've got like something else going on, and when it's like you slow down, then you just can't seem to figure anything out. So I would say be really mindful of that, because you probably do need to take some time to really stop and reflect and just like sit through whatever discomfort there is there. But yeah, and I also kind of, the thing that came to mind is like, yeah, just kind of slow things down, be more aware of like what your mind is doing, what your mind is telling you, especially if you're running into things like, you know, feeling impatient, judging your productivity or your ability, and especially if you find yourself looking for shortcuts. Because I will say, you know, there's a difference between finding the most efficient way to do something and taking a shortcut, right? And so it's like, we don't want to be sacrificing the process, the quality, whatever it is that we're working on. It's like, we don't want to sacrifice the, you know, the main kind of goal or the outcome that we're looking to achieve by dishonoring the process and trying to find a shortcut. So it's like, efficiency is something that we want to do, making our life easier, not kind of like stubbornly pushing ahead and doing things in the most difficult way possible. But it's also not looking to cheat yourself out of whatever this is, like whatever you're meant to experience, whatever work is meant to put in. The shortcut is not going to pay off for you, but the efficiency will. So it's kind of like all of this stuff, this competing energy that's going on within you, just being a little bit more mindful of that and taking time. And the other thing is, when I say like maybe needing time to like slow down and reflect, it's also being mindful of overthinking, over analysis, making like assumptions, even like paranoia, fear, like assuming that you know what people are thinking or how they're going to respond, or, you know, being inspired to take some kind of action based on fear. So it was kind of like, yeah, it was a very interesting energy. And I kind of get the sense that there might also be some sadness that you guys are either currently experiencing, or like maybe you've been up against, and like I just kind of feel like there might be a little bit of avoidance around whatever is causing you some kind of emotional discomfort. So the first channel message that came through specifically was forget about it. And then, so that could be in multiple ways. Like there could be someone or something that you're trying to forget about. You know, maybe like a struggle with a decision that you've made and you're trying to forget about things that you've done in the past and move forward. It could be a current situation that is causing you trouble, maybe like something that isn't aligned that you're currently involved with, and you are trying to kind of like pacify yourself by forgetting about it, but it's like you can't really forget about it if it's like a constant issue, you know? And the thing that came through with that was also like the idea of drinking to forget. So it's like, I don't know, maybe you lost a friend, maybe you lost a loved one, maybe you lost a job or money, maybe you're just not happy with where you're at and how things are going. And so you kind of like try to numb whatever discomfort emotionally you're feeling with alcohol or like substances. So I'd say just like, if that makes sense for you, just be mindful of that. The next thing that came through is only the strong survive. And for me, my experiences in high school with like athletes, I felt like that was like one of those really kind of like, it was really deeply ingrained with like toxic masculinity, like only the strong survive. And like, I think what came to mind when this message came through is it's like recognizing that strength is more than just like putting your head down and plowing through things, right? Like truth strength is like emotional strength, spiritual strength. It's not just physical, and it's not just trying to forget about our problems, but it's also it requires vulnerability. It requires self-awareness and acceptance, and it requires us to be willing to extend kindness and understanding and compassion, not only to ourselves but to others. And so it might be a time to kind of evaluate like how you perceive strength, what strength means to you, what your values are in relation to strength, and those qualities of kindness and compassion and vulnerability. And if you're truly allowing yourself to be like well-rounded as a strong person, or if you have some maybe potentially harmful or toxic ideas of what it means to be strong. There's also kind of a defensive energy that comes through, like only the strong survive. So it's kind of like you have to have your backup in like in a protective way. So that, I don't know if that might make sense to you. The next message that came through was taken for granted. So perhaps you might be in an energy where you realize that there are specific people or things that you have taken for granted. Maybe things that have been people or things that have been particularly helpful or supportive and helping you achieve your goals. Or it could be a sense of feeling taken for granted. So generally that would be in relationships, like romantic relationships, friendships, relationships with family members. It could even be with colleagues. And so I think it's really important, if that does resonate with you, whatever that might be connected to recognize that when we feel as though we're taken for granted or other people do, it's kind of like a breeding ground for resentment, and it can create a whole lot of tension emotionally, not only just for us individually, but like in our relationships. So I think it's important, if that does resonate, to kind of be mindful of what that's tied to and how you can maybe work through it. And maybe there's a conversation that needs to be had. Maybe there's some truth that needs to be kind of spilled. So I would just keep that in mind. The next message that came through was like somebody wants something from you that you feel like you can't give them. And that could literally be anything. So it's like if there's a person who is kind of like looking for something from you, it could be physical, it could be emotional in terms of a connection or a relationship, it could be financial support. So it's like if there's somebody that you feel like there's a certain amount of pressure to deliver something that you're not prepared to deliver, or to connect on a level that you're not prepared to connect on, it's just like evaluating what's right for you in that situation, and recognizing that you can understand where another person is coming from, and you can lovingly say like, I'm not in a position to give you this or to meet you in this place. But yeah, it was definitely like a sense of pressure and a sense of sadness relating to that. And it's kind of like it needs a deeper level of reflection, and for you to kind of connect with your truth. Like, what do you want? What's most important to you? Because sometimes we try to work around our true feelings and our needs. And so it's like, oh, well, I can't, like, I just can't give this to you, or I can't do this or that. And people don't necessarily receive that well because they don't understand why. And a lot of times, like, we'll hide behind an idea of like, I can't do it, when it's simply that we don't want to. And it's difficult for us to express, like, we have wants and needs, and maybe we don't want to do that. Maybe we don't want to connect with that person. Maybe we don't want to have that relationship. Maybe we don't want to buy that house. And it's easier to kind of like soften the blow by just saying like, I can't do it. But I think it's also important to own that like you deserve to have your own desires, and it's totally okay. Like if there's something that you don't want to do, I think it's important to own that you don't want to, because not wanting to is different than like not being able to, right? Because that kind of like puts the onus like outside of yourself. And I think that people don't necessarily receive that the way that it's intended, right? So it's important to be very clear and very intentional with our words and how we express ourselves, because sometimes by trying to like soften the blow of like the truth of the matter, we end up using language that can be confusing for other people, and they don't really understand our true intention. So it's like there is a difference between like not being able to and like just straight up not wanting to. So yeah, so there might be some reflection needed, you connecting with your inner truth. There might be, I get the sense that there are like conversations that need to happen, like just, you know, maybe clearing the air, maybe there's like misunderstanding. But yeah. The next thing that came through was anger, conflict, and exhaustion. So like the sense of just being tired of fighting. So it could be tired of fighting, you know, yourself, your demons, you know, your emotions, your habits. It could be, you know, conflict with other people. So however that resonates for you, it's like, yeah, there is a sense of just being tired of fighting. And I think it's important for you to take note of what it is that you're fighting. Any resistance that you feel in any area of life, it's like, who and what are you resisting? Why are you resisting? Is that resistance serving you? Is it a good use of your energy? Or is there a way that you can kind of focus that energy into something that's more productive and aligned for you? Because there is that sense that what we resist persists. And so sometimes it can just be a matter of switching your perspective on it and gaining a little bit of distance so that you can kind of accept things as they are, and you can focus on taking things in a direction that's going to be more beneficial for you. So yeah, I don't get the sense that anger and conflict are really super necessary, but you just might be caught, you might be caught in that energy, or there might be a lot of that surrounding you that you just don't want to deal with. And the next thing that came through was every man for himself. And this again kind of went along with this kind of hurt or defensive feeling, like, you know, you can't necessarily trust others, or like other people are out to get you, or, you know, if you don't kind of have your back up and you're in that self-protective mode, then people are going to step all over you or take advantage of you, or you're going to lose out in some way. And so I kind of got the sense that there might be some abandonment wounds there. Like maybe it's difficult to really connect with people because there's a fear of being abandoned. There's a fear of being betrayed. Could be something like that. It doesn't have to be. And like I said, this doesn't necessarily apply to everybody, but this is what I was picking up on. So that sense that like every man for themselves, you take care of yourself, like to a certain extent, that is a healthy behavior, but not when it's coming from a place of like hurt and disconnecting you from the people that you might want to otherwise have in your life. And then the next thing that came through was The Great Gatsby. And like, I really do not know much about the book. I've watched the movie once, but I have a general idea. But what came through specifically was kind of like a sense of sadness. So it's like you might have a lot of friends or a lot of acquaintances. You might surround yourself with a lot of people, but it's kind of like feeling like there are a lot of people around you, but they're all kind of like strangers, or maybe they're not really your friends, right? They might be people that it's like you guys have a good time together and you're someone that they can count on to like have a good time, but there's nothing more. And you know, maybe they'll show up to like party and hang out and have a good time, but they're not going to show up like when you're in the shit and you need like a true friend to support you, right? And it doesn't have to be the reality of the matter, but it could just be a perception based on like, you know, previous hurts or wounds. But I would just keep that in mind, because it's like there might be a lack of like depth and connection and vulnerability in relationships, which could have you feeling lonely in the midst of many people. And then the last thing that came through was like, not my forte, like saying something is not your forte or your strong suit, or like you don't have that skill or ability. And again, I kind of got the sense of like maybe making excuses for yourself and saying like, well, you know, I'm just not good at that, or that's not my strong suit, when really it's not really about that. It could just be like, I don't care. I don't have the desire to do this. And so yeah, I kind of feel like you guys might need to be a little bit more clear and intentional and assertive in your language, in the way that you approach things that you believe about yourself and that you convey things to other people. And it's like you don't need an excuse to just not want to do something. Sorry, I heard a little bit of a crash and I had to go check out, so I kind of lost my place, but let's finish off. So yeah, the idea of something not being your forte, and it's totally fine. We all have our innate strengths and weaknesses, and in order to turn a weakness into a strength, there has to be a certain amount of interest in like pursuing that or dedicating that time and energy. And like, just because something is not your strong suit doesn't mean that you are gonna have to like exhaust yourself to do it. And it also, you don't have to make excuses, right? So it's like, if it's something that you're not good at and you have absolutely zero interest in being involved with it, however that might make sense for you, if it does, I think it's important to just be able to say like, yeah, okay, it's not my forte, but beyond that, like, I don't care about this. It's not something that I want to do. It's not something that I want to spend my time on. And so I would say like, you may know this for yourself and you may have that clarity for yourself, but you might not think that it's okay to just not want to do something. And so it's like, I feel like you kind of have to give yourself permission to say yes to the things that you want to do and to say no to the things that you don't want to do. And if you're saying no, you don't have to make an excuse. You don't have to have a reason. You don't have to soften it for yourself or anyone else. It's okay to just say no for the sake of saying no. And I would say, especially if you've got people around you that have certain ideas or certain expectations, I think it's really important to just kind of stand your ground and use clear language, because if you don't kind of express exactly what is true for you, then it's difficult for that person to understand where you're really coming from. They might have it, and they might just think that you need support or encouragement. So it's kind of like having boundaries around your time and energy and saying no. Yeah, so it's like any sense that you need to make an excuse for yourself, or you find yourself making excuses, I would just say be mindful of that energy this month, and remember, like, you don't need to make excuses for yourself. Like, you do you. Okay, so we'll get into your oracle cards. So your first card is Trust the Niggle. What is this niggling feeling trying to tell you? And so this has everything to do with intuition and how our intuition speaks to us through our senses, our body, you know, the impressions that we get from people, places, and things around us. And then your second card is Baby Steps. So it's an action card, and it says, follow your intuition before it makes sense. So this actually goes really, really nicely. Like, it kind of goes hand in hand with what I was saying about you might need to be mindful of overthinking overanalysis, a tendency to kind of paralyze yourself with thought, or, needing to like hyper rationalize everything. And that could also, if you do have a problem with like saying no or being clear about your reasoning, and like kind of making excuses to soften the edges of your words, this could have a lot to do with that. And the other interesting thing is, if just this card were to show up on its own, I would say that this month might be a time of just really kind of settling in, like improving your self-awareness, like in terms of your thoughts, your feelings, any kind of sensation, any kind of discomfort, any kind of like nagging feeling that like something's just not right, or something just isn't the right fit, or something is not what you want it to be. Or it could be the opposite, where it's like there's something that you really want to do, or something that you really wish you could have, and then it's like, usually we'll have those senses and we'll have that awareness, and we try to kind of logic or rationalize our way out of it because it's difficult to trust our intuition. So I would say, like, if that came out on its own, I would say this is a month of just really kind of digging in and connecting with yourself and becoming aware of anywhere that you're holding discomfort, or anything that's kind of not feeling quite right. But because it's come out with baby steps, it gives me the impression that you might already be aware of whatever this is. You might be aware of something that you don't want, or that it isn't working, and you're kind of like, ugh, not for me, not what I want to do, not how I want to move forward in life, not what I want to experience. Or the converse of that might be like, wow, where I am, not cool, but I really want to try this, or I really want to go here, or this is a career, this is a person I want to connect with. So it's kind of acknowledging that you already have that sense, you already have that awareness, whether you want to or not, whether you appreciate it or not, and whether you actually allow that to inform your decisions or not. It's like, I kind of feel like this might be something that you've been avoiding, right? If you have that sense of right and wrong, or something that you want to do, it's more about taking action this month, or like kind of transitioning to a space where you're ready to take action. So really, trust is the big thing, and it's like, it's there for a reason. So it's like, if you have a nagging feeling like there's something that you should be doing, or something that you shouldn't be doing, right? Or like, a person that you're connected to that you just can't quite trust, or that you just don't necessarily see being beneficial for you, or career, it could be a financial, it could be anything. Like, so it's recognizing that your body is basically informing you of like what is right for you and what you need to be doing in a subtle way, right? Intuition is a subtle thing, and usually it comes through the senses. So it's like, it could be emotion, but also like physical senses of just like something not being right, or having a stress, a knot in your stomach, right? Having tension. And so I think it's recognizing that it is a real thing and it is valid, and just allowing yourself to trust it, right? So it's like, even though it's something that you can't necessarily understand, and even though you might not know the value of it, I think it's important not to try to overanalyze or think your way out of it, because that's not how it works, right? And the fact is, if that's there, if that information or that feedback is being given to you to help you make a decision that might be more in alignment, it's not going to go away, right? And the thing is, the more that you try to resist it, and the more that you ignore it or try to explain it away, the more it's going to be brought to your attention. And so it's kind of like, if you're ignoring what you need to be doing for yourself, you might get away with it for a long time, but it's like, you kind of might be on a slow descent. And then eventually something will happen to take you to the point where you can no longer ignore it, and you have to just face it, right? And usually when it gets to that point, it can be like a really difficult experience, right? So it's kind of like recognizing that if you recognize those kind of nagging feelings, right? And if you can approach it with curiosity, like, what does this mean for me? What is this trying to tell me? And trust that there's something beneficial there. And if you allow yourself to kind of take action on that, it's trusting that, like, it might feel difficult or uncomfortable, but ultimately it's not going to go away. So the more that you trust it and lean into it now and allow that to impact your decisions and taking you in the direction that's right for you, you're probably going to avert a way more difficult expression of that in the future, right? So it's like, it's kind of like doing yourself a favor and doing what's right for you. Like you don't have to get to the point of like a total breakdown in order to do something good for yourself, right? And like some people do, like some people do need to hit rock bottom or however you want to view it. But it's basically just saying like you can be empowered to trust that and even just approach it with a sense of curiosity and see what you might stand to gain or benefit from following your intuition. And so the thing that I love with it coming up with baby steps is this is about like taking that step out of overanalysis and into trust. And it's like, it's kind of like a leap of faith. So it's like, if you can trust that there's something there, even if you don't fully understand it, and even if you don't know exactly, like you don't have the exact answer, you don't have exact clarity, but you just kind of have that niggle, like that nudge. If you start following that before it makes sense, it's like that is all you're meant to do, right? And it could just be to help you step out of overanalysis or out of an idea that there's a perfect way for any given thing to be done, and you have to kind of plan and prepare and know how everything is going to turn out in advance before you can allow yourself to even take that first step. And this is saying like, no, that's not it. Like you're putting too much pressure on yourself. It's not, it's, I don't know, cliche to say, but it's about the journey, not the destination. And the fact is we're living that journey every day. And so, you know, all you have to do is just take the smallest step inspired by whatever this is, like whatever that thing that you want to move toward is, or the thing that you need to move away from, whatever you need to start or stop doing based on this feeling, right? So if you ask yourself, like, what is this feeling trying to tell me? What is it connected to? What do I need to know? And then based on that, you say like, what can I do to honor this feeling, right? How can I take action? And it doesn't have to be massive. It doesn't have to be a huge shift, a huge change. It doesn't have to be like a really, you know, giant thing to shake up your life. But it's accepting like you don't have to have the whole picture, right? So it's like you can take that first step in the direction of something that feels right without knowing exactly what that is or how it's going to pan out or what it's going to look like. You don't have to know what the end goal is or what the final destination looks like or feels like. And you don't have to know every step between now and there in order to find benefit and to be able to embrace taking those steps, right? So it's trusting, like, and the whole thing is, it's like we're not meant to know those things, and the only way that we can really kind of get to wherever we're meant to go is to take those baby steps, you know, step by step, and embrace the fact that like we don't know everything, right? And that if we can just kind of tune into that inner guidance and give ourselves the opportunity to move within that energy in that direction, it's like, you know, the clarity will come as we move, but it's like a very organic way to kind of move through it, right? Where you're paying attention to who you are and what you're experiencing instead of trying to understand everything all of the time, right? And this also like reminds me of being in the present moment. So present moment awareness, focusing on what you can do now and what you're experiencing now and what that means for you, instead of projecting yourself into the future based on the experiences that you've had in the past, or instead of looking back on the past and thinking about how things were and maybe wanting to like recreate that. So it's like very much about your power being here right now. Yeah. And so I think it's really good. So if you are aware of something that needs your attention, I would just try and see like what that might be trying to tell you, and then ask yourself like, what is the one tiny little step that I can take to honor that, right? What is one thing, like if you want to become an artist, or if like you have an interest in art, is like, what's one tiny baby step? Maybe you go buy yourself some paints, buy yourself a canvas. You don't even have to start painting, but just open the door, right? Take the first step. And it's just allow yourself to keep moving in that direction, right? Like it's not an easy thing to do if you feel like everything that you need to do in life has to be like planned and purposeful, right? Because our intentions and the things that are important to us that we can't necessarily like understand or explain have a whole lot more value than we give them credit for. Okay, so we'll get you some tarot cards. So your first card is the King of Swords. Okay. Your second card, actually you got two that came out for this placement, so that'll be some extra information. So you've got the Empress with the Page of Wands for your second placement. Your third card is the Ace of Swords. And we'll get you one more. Oh my, this is a whole journey. So finally we have the World as your final card. And on the bottom of the deck, we have the Five of Swords. Okay. You know what? I'll get your clarifiers just for fun right now. So we'll clarify the King of Swords first. We have the Three of Wands, clarifying the King of Swords. Also, we'll clarify the Empress. We have the Ten of Pentacles. We'll clarify the Page of Wands, clarified by Daughter of Cups, which I'm pretty sure is the Page of Cups. Also a page clarified by a page. Interesting. Ace of Swords is clarified by the Five of Pentacles. Well, okay, we're gonna have to fix this because a whole bunch just jumped out for your last. So we'll clarify the World. One more card to clarify the World. The Lovers. And it's funny because the Lovers was actually one of the ones that came out in that jumble. And we've got Son of Wands at the bottom of the deck. Okay, so with the Five of Swords at the bottom of the deck, this is kind of like what's underlying the energy for this month. And it's kind of an energy that we can fall into when we have a habit of overthinking, particularly if we've got fear and anxiety, if we've got limiting beliefs, either just because of our own previous experiences or maybe things that we were taught and we were ingrained. And it's kind of like those disempowering, nagging thoughts and beliefs that keep us limited, right? That keep us in a place of fear and anxiety, that keep us from really fully connecting to our passion or the things that we enjoy. And it can just taint our view of ourselves and of other people, our view of the world, how the world works. And it's kind of like, this is an energy of having this kind of these like nagging thoughts that are just nattering at you and that are not helping you. It's like giving you a headache, but there's the opportunity to kind of gain some kind of clarity on how those are not serving you, or how they're rooted in fear, or how they might not even belong to you. It might be something that someone else experienced that they ingrained in you as you were growing up, or whatever the case may be. And it might be something that you've just absorbed. And so you might be limiting yourself in a lot of ways and causing yourself a lot of stress and anxiety based on somebody else's damage, or, being boxed in by somebody else's beliefs. And this could be related to anything. It could be, love, passion, money, relationships, like career. The fact that it came out with the Son of Wands says it might have something to do with your your passion, your creativity, your inspiration, the things that kind of light you up, that little spark of enthusiasm and creativity that brings light to the rest of your life. So it doesn't have to be what you do as a career, although it can be passionate about your work, it can be passionate in relationships. But it's kind of like that willingness to connect with that energy and to have an outlet for that energy. And also the snake represents like almost like death and rebirth, like an ability to shift and grow. So it's like to be able to shed your skin and continually be evolving in terms of like what you're passionate about and how that is expressed in, you know, the decisions that you make. And it can be like having some kind of artistic outlet as well. So it's kind of like passion and taking action on that passion, and incorporating more of that into your life might be part of freeing yourself from these limiting beliefs. Or maybe you believe that you don't have time for that energy, or it's not helpful, right? So maybe you've got this idea like, oh, you need to be solely focused on money and there's no time for creative expression. There's no time for passion and enjoyment. You just put your head down and do what you have to do. This doesn't have to be, but I'm giving you just an example. And it's kind of like being able to free yourself from anything that's limiting you from either connecting with or making use of the things that you're naturally passionate about, because those are meant to help enrich your journey. Like we're not just here to suffer, you know? And so perhaps the niggling feeling of your intuition has something to do with that, something to do with the ways that you limit yourself or the things that you are fearful of or, you know, kind of holding back on in terms of your passion and creativity. So you're being encouraged to come into the month in a very like solid energy in terms of being able to speak your truth. I think that's the main thing here, because the King of Swords is a very mature, kind of well-rounded energy, right? So his forte, so to speak, is like communication, strategy, right? Like taking all of the information into account and making rational and logical decisions, but also knowing that it's not just about logic. It's not just about data and like cold hard facts, that it's like sometimes you have to make decisions that don't necessarily make sense on paper because you have more information available to you. And it's recognizing that it's not just those cold hard facts and data and like the stuff that's really tangible and obvious that you have as like information to make your decisions, but you know, it's like taking other people into account, their emotions, their well-being. It can be taking like resources and support into consideration, right? So it's basically trusting that you have the wisdom and foresight to make decisions that are going to be right for you, and allowing yourself to connect with your own personal truth as well, right? Like trusting your wisdom. And this kind of goes hand in hand with not overthinking, right? Because swords energy can be like really kind of chaotic. It can be really quick moving. There can be lots of thoughts, lots of fears and anxieties, but the King of Swords is very stable, right? Like he's very grounded. He's got a good handle. He doesn't let his mind get away from him, but at the same time, he's not going to make excuses for himself. Like he won't beat around the bush, but he's not brutal, you know? And so it's kind of like, you might be in a position where you really need to lead by example, and you really need to be communicating in a very clear and honest and fair manner, even if it's not what people want to hear. And even if it's like one of those situations where like you have to make a decision that is right for you, or it's like best for everybody, but like maybe the other people involved can't see it that way. It's trusting that you have the vision and the knowledge and the wisdom and the ability to make those decisions and to take those actions and to speak confidently and clearly about your intentions and about what is true for you. And to kind of not back down and not compromise on those certain core things, right? And with this being coming up with the Three of Wands, this might have to do with your passion and creativity, right? So you might be on a path where it's like maybe you started to give yourself a little bit more freedom to explore the things that you enjoy just for the sake of enjoying them, or you know, some kind of creative outlet, or connecting with people that are like-minded, right? And it's kind of like there's a world of opportunity there for you, and you're just at the beginning. And it's kind of up to you to remain focused on what that means to you, what you're looking to experience, and to kind of like stay the course and see how that might transform your life. Because if this, whatever this could be even a creative venture on the side, or an outlet. So it's just in its infancy, and it's about kind of like continuing to give yourself permission and not falling back into fear or like some kind of limiting belief or flawed perception, right? So it's like the King of Swords, like he knows what's right, and he's able to identify those maybe less than helpful thoughts and perceptions, and work through them instead of allowing them to taint or cloud his vision for the future. And so that's the energy that you're being encouraged to come into this month with. And I get this very kind of curious sense of where this might take you, whatever this is for you, however it makes sense. There's a sense of curiosity in terms of where it might take you, but also there's like a greater vision for a future that, yeah, maybe you don't quite know. So it's like, in given situations, like what's right and wrong for you, whether you're prepared to stand up and take action on that or not. But it's kind of like, you don't necessarily know where that's leading, because this is almost like a portal into, infinite possibility or creativity. And so just because you might not know exactly what that looks like, and you don't necessarily know the value of what's yet to come, and other people might not necessarily know it, it's knowing that if it's right for you, you need to make that decision and stick with it. And just being very straight up and honest with people. You can be fair and honest and truthful. So it's kind of like, yeah, what I was saying about not making excuses. It's like, if there's something that you don't like or that you don't want to do, it's okay. And there's a way that you can express that to people, and people are inevitably going to be disappointed, but it's important to kind of honor that for yourself. Your struggle or challenge for this month is showing up. Oh my gosh, I just realized some of these cards are out of the frame. Let me fix this. So it's showing up as the Empress with the Page of Wands. And so this is kind of interesting. So we've got energy like with court cards and some major arcana of like different people. So this might be people that you're interacting with. But I will say, with the Empress here, clarified by the 10 of Pentacles, this could very well have to do with your future in terms of family. So it's like, if you're making a decision, like, do I want to have a family? Do I want to get pregnant? Do I want to have a baby with my partner? Do I want to marry this person and like build a home and a life for them? Right. And it can be having to do with like, yeah, it can be a physical, birth or pregnancy. And, or it can be like, the birth of like something creative, right? It could be entrepreneurial, anything that basically can be conceived of and brought into the world in whatever form. So it doesn't have to be family. But the interesting thing is, with it showing up with the 10 of Pentacles, the 10 of Pentacles is kind of about the happily ever after, right? So from a material, physical standpoint, it's like happy home life, good jobs, strong finances. You've got the wife and the kids, or the husband and the kids, or, however you identify. It's having that happy, healthy, stable family unit, and that being like your kind of basis for happiness and stability in life. And it can also be about needing a strong basis of stability, and a good amount of material resources in order to feel comfortable having children or having a family, or even expanding a family and sustaining that. And if it isn't related to family in particular, it can just be about like whatever it is that inspires you, that you want to take action on and bring into the world. It's like, you might be limiting yourself in terms of what you think you can do or how you think you can do it, because you're afraid about money, or you're afraid about not having enough money, or, not being able to get that dream home or that dream car. It's like, I can't have everything. So I would just say you might want to examine any kind of limiting beliefs about what it is that you want to create and bring into the world, and how you feel about your ability to do that. Because I kind of get the sense that it's like, and I think that's natural too. It's like, especially if you're thinking about family, or marriage, or, any kind of like major life change, milestone, and commitment, it can be really difficult not to feel super limited by you know, the material kind of world, right? Like money, job, all that stuff. So, and it could also be about really being focused on building that foundation and not necessarily being ready to take that step yet. So maybe collecting your resources and not getting into a place where you're feeling afraid to move forward because you're so focused on your resources. But anyways, these two coming up together really do reflect well on having the opportunity to, like, whatever it is that you want to create or conceive or birth, it has the opportunity to be something really abundant and fruitful, but it's only going to be if it's something that is right for you and aligns for you. So yeah, you might just have to be thinking about your priorities and what it is that you want and who you want it with, and just kind of facing some fears. Could even be fear of commitment, to be honest with you, because whether it's a family or whether it's just like a creative endeavor or a job or something like that, like there is a sense of, you know, change and commitment and having to follow through. So that could be it as well. For that to come up with the Page of Wands, the Page of Wands is all about embracing, being on a creative journey, driven by inspiration, allowing yourself to be expressive, right? To take that passion and creativity that's on the inside and to allow it to impact your actions and the way that you show up, right? To enjoy yourself. So this, she's like kind of free and dancing. She's not worried about what anyone else is doing. She's not worrying about what anyone else thinks. She's not worried about where she's going or where this is going to take her. It's kind of just like expression for the sake of expressing. And it's very much an in the moment kind of energy, right? And so it's like there is a sense of freedom, and being at the beginning of this journey, it's like you want to be connected with that freedom. And maybe you have a lack of freedom, or maybe an idea that like, well, if, you know, if I start this venture, if I start a job, if I'm trying to accomplish this thing, if I'm going to get married and have a kid, I'm not going to have freedom. I'm not going to have the ability to express myself and to just feel joyful and allow myself to lean into the things that I'm passionate about. So for that to come up with the Page of Cups is basically saying like this expression, this passion and creativity, and having an outlet and being able to connect with that freedom is really important for you on an emotional level too, right? So your passion and creativity is really deeply tied to your emotions and your experience of the world through your emotions. And so it's like if you've got a block in one sense, you're going to have a block in the other. And if what you want is to experience happiness and freedom, have those creative outlets, and to have love and happiness and fulfillment on a deep level, it's like you're kind of having to bring those into balance. Like they're deeply connected to each other. It's like I get the sense that you can't have one without the other. And so it's like you're tied to money and material goods, and even your ideas and concepts about abundance and material possessions and stability might be impacting your ability to realize your creativity, express your creativity, and connect with yourself on a more emotional level, right? And so it's like there could be some hurt and some limiting beliefs and some challenges here that it's like they need to be transmuted through this creative and emotional expression. And this is also like being able to speak openly about emotions, about emotional experiences, being vulnerable, looking for a deeper level of connection to the people around you, because the only way, like depth begets depth, right? And so if you're in a place where you need to be closed off from your emotions and you've got walls up, you can't really get to a deep, meaningful experience of life if you're not allowing yourself to go there in the first place, right? Because you're never going to have a deep, meaningful, loving relationship with somebody else if you're not even willing to go there on your own, right? And so it's like, this is all showing up as a challenge for you. So I would be mindful the intersection of like money, family, ideas about marriage, family planning, the future, your house, your home, your career, your money, and your savings, and how that impacts your creative expression, your connection to your inspiration, and your connection to your emotions and to other people, to like love ultimately. Because it's kind of like competing energies, and it's like if your ideas about this kind of like stability and abundance are dampening your spirit, then it's like chances are that's coming from a place of fear and maybe some skewed beliefs that were kind of ingrained in you, and it's not necessarily going to bring you to the happiest version of yourself. Yeah, this is like very like I was saying, there is a lot of competing energy here, like, you know, it's like scattered focus, right? And so the way that you're basically being encouraged to kind of handle whatever this mix of stuff is for you in terms of your ideas about material stability and abundance and creative expression and the value of emotion and creative expression, is just to kind of keep an open mind, right? Be willing to let go of your expectations, your limiting beliefs, any kind of idea that you know exactly what something is or how it's going to play out, right? So it's like set your preconceived notions aside, set your overanalysis aside, and allow yourself to be opened up by your experiences. So it's like if you're in a place of creative expression or experiencing your emotions, or if you're trying to like connect with the more stable, grounded, like material resources side of things, it's like be aware of what you have been thinking in the past and what has been guiding you to make the decisions that you've made, and if that really has served you, if it's really made you feel good, or if it's just kind of bringing more attention in, right? Because whatever is guiding us to make the decisions that we're making is ultimately infused into whatever we're doing. So if you're doing something from a place of fear, you're really only going to get yourself deeper into fear. It's like kind of just going down the wrong rabbit hole. And that's very much the power of the mind, right? So the mind can go completely untamed and we can spiral all the way down into a place that can be very difficult to get out of, or we can allow ourselves to be aware of what we've been thinking before, to have our minds open up by the experiences that we've had, to find a different way to see or perceive or understand something. And that can, as much as it can be a spiral downward if we're not in a good place, it can also kind of be like a stairwell to ascension and a new perspective and kind of like a new lease on life or a new take on an old situation. And for this to come out specifically with the Five of Pentacles, the Five of Pentacles is like it's like out in the cold. It's like being poor, impoverished, not having resources, not having money, not having support. It could be like losing a job or a home or feeling financially unstable. Usually it's like, two poor people kind of like out in the cold. And it can even be like having a family that you need to support and not having the resources. So there could be fear about not being, maybe your family was unstable growing up or money was a thing, and now you're really super focused on money and home and abundance, and that's like keeping you from even being willing to have a family of your own. There could be something to unpack around like family and resources. But essentially it's like there's an opportunity for you to get a new perspective on whatever that is, and a new perspective on this challenge. And so however this energy is showing up this month, however it's challenging you, it's being willing to see it from a different perspective, and willing to see yourself from a different perspective. And maybe the things that you have believed or that you've done that you thought was well-informed and well-intended, but was actually coming from a place of fear. And so it's like specifically there might be an opportunity to really transform your beliefs about abundance, your beliefs about, poverty, or, the ways that you feel like unstable or unsupported. And it's like a sense of sadness or failure or loss when it comes to your material resources. And it could be an actual loss, right? And so it's kind of like, while it's very important and having that instability can make our lives really challenging and difficult, it's not the only thing, right? It's like we still have that, we still have relationships, we still have opportunities for creative expression and connection to other people and love, right? And focusing on what we do have can help us while we're trying to heal our ideas about physical, like material abundance, because abundance comes in all forms, right? And so it's kind of like not crying over spilt milk, not focusing on the wilted rose that's losing its petals and just giving up hope, right? It's recognizing that like sometimes even loss and hardship and poverty serve a purpose, right? And if we allow ourselves to become so focused on and so overwhelmed by that experience of that kind of like poverty or loss or like a fear of it, then, sometimes it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy, but it also makes it very difficult for us to enjoy anything, right? Because we're kind of always in this resource hoarding mentality where we never have enough and we can never feel comfortable, and we can never take a step forward, into new territory because there's just never enough, right? And so yeah, you might have some like that every man for themselves. You might have some issues trusting your ability to connect with abundance, trusting that you will be able to provide for yourself, or you will be provided for, or things will work out. So this is an opportunity for you to kind of focus on what's going on the inside, what your intuition is trying to tell you, and starting to take tiny little baby steps in a new direction, that might help you change your mind, right? So there is a sense of like freedom and opportunity is there, but of course you have to be willing to seize it. You have to be willing to trust your intuition. You have to be willing to take those tiny little baby steps, and trust that you don't have to know everything. And that might be enough to kind of just open your eyes and your mind up to a whole new world of possibility, whereas before you were feeling really limited, especially on the material plane. And then the highest possible outcome for this month is actually really lovely, because the World is like the last card in the major arcana. So it is the culmination of the Fool's journey. So being willing to take that leap of faith, follow your heart, live a more aligned life where you've got a level of self-awareness that you're able to make informed decisions that are going to be beneficial for you on your unique path, to trust your intuition, to take those baby steps. So it's kind of like finishing of a cycle. So it can be an ending. It can be an ending of a stage of life. It can be an ending of a specific pattern of behavior or belief system. It can be, finishing school, graduating. It can be moving on from moving on from a career, stepping out onto a new path. It can be ending a relationship. So it is, however that makes sense to you, it's kind of like ending and recognizing that we can't live in the same space all the time, right? And so that we have to move through those cycles of like, starting something new, learning, growing, developing, struggling, refining our skills. And then eventually we get to the point where we've learned what we're meant to learn from that specific situation or person or experience. And we have to graciously allow it to end, right? And we have to kind of see, what did we learn from this, to take the value and to take what's going to serve us moving forward, and to leave whatever doesn't, and to allow it to end, basically, right? Because it's like, once that door is closed, then we can kind of move on to the next thing, and kind of start the next lesson. And this is also a card of like, because it's a card of ending and culmination, it's like, look how much you've learned, right? So whether it was your journey to a specific career or a relationship or whatever, however that makes sense to you, whatever you've been experiencing, whatever's been taking up most of your time. And this is like a long-term energy, so it could be over the last few years or more. But it's recognizing how you've been changed by that, how much more experience, how much more wisdom and knowledge you have. And the fact is, you've had those experiences and you've been fortified with that knowledge so that you can make different decisions moving forward. You can be changed by it, and you can kind of start off on a new path. So there is a sense of like having a bigger picture view, having a sense of enlightenment or a new perspective, and looking back on everything that you experienced and saying like, gosh, maybe while I was in it, I didn't understand what was happening, but now I've got a whole different perspective. And it's kind of like, it's up to you to do your best with that experience and that new information. So it's like, it's important not to hold on to the past or to try to stay and relive it, especially if a situation has become stagnant, because it's like, we always want to be learning and growing. And it's like, you have grown so much and you have so much wisdom from this experience. Just think about how much more is out there, right? And so it's being willing to be curious and to continue on that path of constant learning and development, right? And this, to come up with the Lovers, this could very much have to do with love, like romantic relationships. If it's not romantic relationships, it can be self-love as well. It might be a partnership specifically. So it could be that you're like ending a relationship, ending a soulmate connection or friendship, stepping away from somebody, or it could be that the relationship or the connection is going through some kind of ending and evolving, right? So it's like you finished out a cycle, you've learned some major lessons, and now you're kind of like setting out anew. But yeah, there's definitely an opportunity to kind of like close a chapter, solidify everything that you've learned, and then being willing to kind of allow yourself to create space to let go of the baggage and the old stuff that's not going to serve you moving forward. And yeah, just create space for something new. And yeah, the Lovers is also just about, you know, giving and receiving love, reciprocity in relationships. And it can be like really deep, intimate, connected, like a soulmate partnership, right? So it could also be your ideas about love and relationships, what is possible, what you value, right? So there's like some kind of opportunity for an ending and a new beginning. I don't know how that makes sense to you, but oh gosh, Aquarius, as always, you guys just have so much going on. Oh, okay, we got your affirmations. So I welcome abundance and I will pay attention to the guidance I receive. So that's it. We might need to take a look at our ideas about abundance, our worth, the forms that abundance takes, which is not just material, and trusting that you're going to receive, because it's not enough to want it, but you also have to be prepared to receive it. And it's acknowledging that this intuition, this niggling feeling, it's part of you, it's part of your path, and it's part of your internal guidance system, and to help you kind of connect with what's meant for you, right? So pay attention to the guidance that you receive and know that you don't have to make some giant like life-changing decision, and you don't have to like be really super out there. You can just take tiny little baby steps. You don't have to know what it looks like or where it's going to take you, but you can get there and you can trust your ability to navigate for yourself. And then we have stillness is the key to success. So yeah, like I was saying, you might need to take some time to really reflect and to recognize that a lot of what's going on within you is trying to bring your attention to what you're meant to be doing. So it's kind of like whatever you're resisting, whatever you're avoiding, the more busy you are, the more difficult it is to kind of get to the bottom of it. And it'll stick with you, and it'll be impacting you and your life experiences, whether you deal with it or not. So it's kind of like give yourself time to just be still and connect with yourself. And I am going to get you one final oracle card. I'll just read directly from the book for this one. Let's see. Orphaned. Oh my gosh. So that's interesting, because it's like I was saying, you guys might have abandonment wounds, fear of abandonment. There might be like a sense of not being well provided for as a child, and maybe that's like impacting your idea about abundance and relationships and having a family of your own potentially. Very interesting. I don't think I pulled this card before, so I'll read you what the book says. So it says a sense of loss and identity crisis, recognizing that you don't fit in and the need to belong, uncertainty about your place. So it says, we were all meant to have connections with other people within our family, society, and the larger culture. No man is an island, and it's important to recognize when being a part of, rather than being separate from, is essential to your well-being. The issue at hand is you need to find where you fit. Be true to your core truths and values. That's what this guy is about. Perhaps you no longer identify with a group or community the way you did before, and you need to find a new situation. You might be feeling a deep sense of loss or confusion. Address the need for belonging, and know that you will find your place with others of like mind and spirit. It's okay to let go of pressure to fit in. Not everyone will understand you, and it's time to move on. So it's like very much about that. And this is like also the page is also about like just creative self-expression. It's like not caring, right? So it's like your vibe attracts your tribe. If you just put it out there, the people who respect it will be drawn in. And that might mean that you also lose people. So there's a relationship message that says, as you shift and evolve and commit to your own growth, you long for support, but may be disappointed and hurt by others who are not providing what you feel you deserve. Perhaps you are drifting away from this relationship because you're in a different stage of personal growth. Perhaps you are in a new relationship and discovering that you don't share the same values and beliefs, so you feel left out, unable to get that intimate place of safety and belonging. Take heart, as Spirit knows you and loves you, and will steer you in the direction of those who accept you as you are without artifice or agenda. Don't compromise yourself to belong. It won't be worth the price. And then Prosperity says, this card reminds you that you can't be all things to all people. You are not going to be popular with everyone, and that has to be okay with you. Be clear about your mission, your brand, your work persona, and your contribution to the world, as these must be based on what you authentically have to offer, not something you think will sell or you perceive they might want. You will attract abundance by being completely yourself. Stay in your lane. That's where you will shine and where you'll experience prosperity. So it's like just kind of like unabashed authenticity. And then there's a protection message. The shadow side of this card speaks to the essence of abandonment. Perhaps you feel a need to remain apart because intimacy is too threatening. It also warns against creating inappropriate family structures in order to conceal old wounds. It's time to address the unhealthy alliances you formed and make a decision to heal the past. You will not be abandoned by the world if you claim yourself as whole. Not all relationships are dysfunctional, and not all of them will disappoint you. Don't abandon yourself. You can connect to others in a healthy way once you recognize your patterns and consciously choose to interrupt them. Life wants to love you. Let it. So yeah, there you go. There might be an opportunity for a new kind of connection or a new perspective on relationships, but it's kind of a lot to unpack, to be honest with you. But I really do feel this is just about you kind of claiming your own power. And like I said, like very much the vibes of like, you don't have to do it on your own. You don't have to have your backup. You know, you can have a deeper level of connection. You can have healthy relationships, but it really requires you to trust yourself and to take action on what's unique and authentic to you, to kind of like follow that nudge, connect with the people that you feel drawn to, the places, the outlets, whatever it is, like allow yourself to move in that direction and allow yourself to be changed by that, because that's core to who you are, and that will have a huge amount to do with how you feel about yourself, how you express yourself, and what you attract. So if you're not happy with where you're at right now, just know that that is simply a reflection of the decisions that you've made to this point, and you can always do something different. And I think like there's a lot of wisdom that you've got inside, and maybe you're trying to like ignore that and follow some kind of like roadmap to success. And it's like the roadmap is within you. It is completely unknown, and you just have to feel your way through it bit by bit, which is absolutely scary. But yeah, I think it's just embracing your inner wisdom and your authenticity and allowing yourself to do what makes sense to you, and recognizing if you're growing and changing and the people around you aren't necessarily supporting you, then it's okay to connect with people that are in a similar space. And just by owning your thing and doing you, regardless of what other people think, especially when it comes to your expression, your self-expression, you're going to connect with the people and the resources that are ultimately going to be aligned in that sense. But it starts with you. You kind of have to take the first step. So Aquarius, I really love that for you. I hope that June is an absolutely beautiful month. Thank you so much for being here with me. It's been an absolute pleasure to read for you, and I'm looking forward to reading for you again in the future. If you did enjoy this reading, the best way to support me is to like this video on YouTube or leave me a comment. Beyond that, you can share this content with anyone you feel might be interested in it, and head on over to my channel at Bright Soul Collective Tarot. Make sure you hit subscribe and sign up for notifications so you can stay up to date on new readings as they're posted. But yeah, seems like there's a lot here, but I think you guys are in a good position to start taking action on what you know to be true, and just allow yourself to lean into that. Don't overthink it. And yeah, you might be surprised to see where that takes you. Things can change. A lot of things can change in simply a month. So yeah, looking forward to reading for you next month, Aquarius. And in the meantime, I'm wishing you all the very best.